My name is Frans Rosén, and I work as a knowledge advisor at Detectify. And we do like security monitoring for websites. And I blog about security issues in our blog, with basically talking about fun stuff I find, because that's what I do. Do anybody know about HackerOne? Yay! Cool. So, HackerOne is a marketplace for security issues, basically meaning that companies can work with security researchers from all over the world, and as a thank you for hacking the companies, they will pay money back to the researchers. And I'm one of the top hackers of HackerOne. I call myself a white hat, and white hat is something that started for me about 3.5 years ago. I got an email from PayPal. PayPal wrote an email saying like, hey, if you find security issues on PayPal, we're going to pay you money. And the only thing you need to do is to send us an email. And if you do that, we'll pay you money. And I was interested, so I registered an account, a PayPal account, and a merchant account, personal account. And I started playing around with it. And suddenly I see something that should not be there. So I figured out this is a security issue. So I did some print screens, wrote down like a reproducible report about it, and sent it over to PayPal, and forgot about it. And a couple of months later, I get an email from PayPal saying like, hey, this was a security issue. What's your PayPal address? We want to send you $750. And like, that's an email you throw away. You don't keep that email, because that email is spam, most likely. But this wasn't. This was actually an email. They wanted to pay me money. And at this time, when PayPal started this, there was a bunch of companies doing the same thing. They were launching a bug bounty program. And when this happened, I totally freaked out. Like, I started hacking all these companies. And at this time, I've never had so many shirts in my closet as this time, because I was getting so much shirts. I was getting money also from a bunch of these companies, but mostly shirts. So I had a bunch of T-shirts. And it went so far, I actually went to Thailand with my girlfriend. And during the time in Thailand, I get an email. I see it on my iPhone. And I see that one of these companies is launching a bug bounty program. And they're going to pay money if we find issues. And I didn't bring my laptop. So I was like, holy shit, I need to do something with this. So during a night in Thailand, this is how I spend my Thailand weekends or holiday. I sat with my iPhone, sending print screens from my iPhone, sending them 22 emails with separate security issues to this company. And I went to bed early in the morning in Thailand, woke up in the evening and watched my inbox. And I had 2 emails with $4,000 in it. And this company has not only verified that the issues were there, they also confirmed them, fixed them, and paid me out the money. And this was during the night. So I realized this is going to be big thing. It was a win-win. Win for me. I had an awesome time in Thailand, even though I was spending this night. And they had awesome time because they had 20 issues actually fixed. And there's more people like me. I'm not the only one doing this. Maybe spending time in Thailand with an iPhone, sure. But all of these people all over the world have different reasons why they're doing it. You can get a really good job if you have references of hacking all of these companies, because they're open on showing people that you actually hack them. And other reasons, there are marketplaces, such as HackerOne, that makes points to this, make a gamification out of it. Which means that there's so many reasons why these people exist out there. And this sounds awesome, right? And it's awesome because all of these follow a policy called the responsible disclosure policy. And some of the parts in this policy says basically that if you find something, you stop and you tell the company. You don't dig further. Compared to a penetration test where you dig further and you try to penetrate more and more and more. But in this case, you don't. And some problems end up with this. Facebook had a problem in December with one guy doing bug bounty for Facebook. Facebook has this also. And he was finding an issue, posting it to Facebook, but the time after, he started digging further because he found some more stuff using the vulnerability. He was digging more and more deeper into Facebook. And Facebook was like, holy shit, somebody's actually hacking us. And they went out with the ethics they think is the way to actually work with this, trying to be clear about the responsible disclosure policy, because Facebook wasn't clear in the beginning, but there is like a codex that everybody should work with. So it sounds great. Apart from this, everything is cool. Like, this is the silver bullet. We'll kill the werewolf with this. We can throw away all the security, everything. This will just fix the problem. No, that won't be the solution. However, if you look at the security as an onion, you have different layers to it. Like, you separate your data, you have it like in different levels. But also in terms of education, you work with internal education. You teach your developers about what to do with security. You make them go to security courses. You teach them about it. You make them interested around security. And also, you test it out. You work with professionals, like penetration testers. You hire penetration testers just to see how good your developers are performing in terms of security. And working with these two steps, the bug bounty part is perfectly matching. Because if the penetration tests and the internal education doesn't really work, and you put something online, anybody can find those issues. So it makes sense that having the public or the amount of people all over the world being able to actually tell you about those issues, it makes a lot of sense, and also makes a lot of sense to thank them about it, because they're being responsible and telling you about it. And Google, for example, is awesome at doing this. Google is so good at reiterating the reports that they get from the bug bounty back to their developers. I've never found an issue on Google twice. Because the developers, every time they get a report, they go back to the developer and start teaching them about what to do and what not to do. And also, their security team also learns around what people are finding, which is awesome. So my experience of this, I have some different experience in terms of bug bounties. So one experience was, I was doing a speech for PyCon, which is a Python conference in Coventry in London, outside of London. And before my speech there, I was like, I'm not a Python programmer. I was about to talk about security. So I was like, let's look at some Python frameworks that is out there, just to get a hunch on what's the problems, how do people fix them. And I found a framework called Flask, which is like a really common web framework for building sites on Python. And one of the first things I see when reading this is like a big red box saying there's a debug mode. And the debug mode basically means that if you enable that publicly, somebody can just take over your server completely. You should only use this internally. Like, this is debug mode internally only. And my first thought is people are not putting this internally only, for sure. So there's a search engine called Shodan, which basically means that you can search for a bunch of servers out there, and depending on what they're answering, they're responding with, you can search for that. So this specific framework, when debug mode was on, you could search for a specific phrase. And I did that. And when I scrolled through the results, there were thousands of servers online. One company popped up called Patreon. Patreon is like a crowdsourcing platform for YouTubers, being able to earn money on your YouTube videos. And when I saw this was screaming that it was vulnerable. This was actually for real screaming that we are vulnerable to this. And I tested this, and it was offline, which was great. I was like, they probably figured it out. Awesome. But I put a ping on the server, which basically means that it will tell me as soon as it went back up. And I forgot about it. I talked a little bit around it on the event, but nothing just in general, have you guys put the bug mode on publicly? Ha ha ha. Nobody have it, of course. And suddenly, some days later, it pings. It tells me it's online. And the first thing I do is I confirm it. It actually presents you with an input box. Write Python code that you want me to run, which is remote code execution, which is game over, and that was by design, because that's how it works. So I sent an email to Patreon, but Patreon was running a bug bounty, actually. So they were paying out money for vulnerabilities. And I sent an email to them saying, urgent, read this. You need to put this server down. It's exposing a remote code execution on a developing server. You should put it down immediately. Took them 4 days. 4 days, I mean, if you get their email and you're at the gym, you stop gymming and you take a cab to the office and you fix it. That's the way you do it. You don't wait 4 days. 4 days later, they respond to me and saying yeah, we know. it's bad. We know. We should probably fix that. It's on me. Yeah, I know. We'll fix it. We knew about it. And I was like, yeah, okay, fine. Didn't care much about it. Few days later, I read the news. I read that Patreon got hacked. All their data was out, all their source code, all the internal, all the information was leaked. Patreon sent out an email to all their users, and I was one of the users, of course. So I got the email. And it said, we were hacked because of a developing server being online. So then I was like, holy shit, this is the same thing. And somebody is actually using this to hack companies. So I sent an email to them. Holy shit, can you confirm that this is actually the issue? I'm pretty sure it is, but you need to confirm this, because if this is true, somebody is actually active hacking on this specific issue, and so there's thousands of other companies. Please respond, because if this is happening, we need to get out there. No response. I knew they created a war room sitting just to cover up the press, the media, and everything. So I realized they won't answer. So we blogged about it. Here's another example of a white hat with a horse. Another company which also runs bug bounties are Twitter on HackerOne. So this is a friend called Ahmed, which is another example of a vulnerability that was interesting. So basically, Ahmed found that if you can post ads on Twitter. You can go into Twitter and you can post ads, and you add your credit card number. And when you add your credit card number, you're able to also delete the credit card number. However, what he found was that if you modify the credit card ID, you modified it, you could delete other people's credit cards. All the people's credit cards, because it were numbers. You just lower it by 1 all the time. So basically, that means that he could delete all the credit cards on ads.twitter.com, which means no ads on Twitter, which is awesome for us. Not that awesome for Twitter. So they fixed it instantly, patched it, and paid him a bounty for it. That's how this marketplace works. Another thing in terms of around this, and my experience around this, was Runa wrote an article on Forbes 2 years ago. And she explained that people were searching through GitHub for credentials for Amazon, AWS. And what they were doing with them was that they were launching a bunch of servers, and with these servers, they were mining Bitcoins. So you're getting a big server bill, but somebody else is getting the Bitcoins. And what happened was that Amazon started searching for all these credentials at this time, which was great. And when I read this, I was like, is this still a thing? Can you actually do this now? But let's not focus on AWS. What's popular right now? What does people do right now? And we were like, Slack is popular. People are working with bots. Bots is like a hype right now. So we started investigating that. And suddenly we post a blog post saying Slack bot token leakage. It's the same problem. Slack doesn't care about it. They think it's the developer's fault. Everybody is exposing the Slack tokens on GitHub because they don't think that the token that they're using in their bot is doing anything weird or dangerous. But it turns out that all the tokens that were used would be able to eavesdrop on all the communication on all channels in all teams on Slack. But people didn't realize that, and Slack didn't communicate about it. So we found so many big companies with their Slack tokens on GitHub, and we tried to talk with Slack, and they were like, yeah, but it's not our fault. Stop poking us about it. Poke them. But there were companies that you don't want to talk with. Hello, you have a security issue. You don't talk with them. So what happened was that we posted it. It became a thing. The Next Web wrote about it also. And it turns out that Slack actually iterated around that thought again. So they now look for the tokens on GitHub and closing them down automatically just because we screamed about it, which was awesome. And talking about GitHub search, this was Slack token in specific. There's a bunch of information around GitHub and tokens. So we thought about, okay, spear phishing? Spear phishing means that you're doing a phishing mail targeting a company. That's the spear in phishing. So let's do spear searching on GitHub. Let's go through all the employees of the company that you want to target on LinkedIn, for example, or look at the organization on GitHub. Go through all the repositories which are publicly available for these persons, and go through the commit history, search for patterns inside this. And it turns out it was extremely, extremely efficient. So we found some login information for a bunch of stuff. We found Salesforce login, which is, I will come to that, pretty bad. We found people not really understanding how version control works. So you see the first line, that means that they removed it. And then the second line is that they changed it to XXX. Because they're like, yeah, oh shit, we have it open, I'm gonna remove it. But this is like, you can just go back in the history and you will see that they, oops. I think the comment on this was something missing, or like, I did something wrong. Like, it's hilarious. So what happened, this is also fun. Like, we saw credentials for a GitHub, the GitHub company for their Salesforce login on GitHub, which is hilarious. Like, even that happens. Sucky password also. But the thing was, I was targeting a specific company. One night, Friday night, 2:30, I was playing around doing this spear searching for a specific company. And I see some credentials, and I see it's to their Salesforce. And if you don't know, Salesforce is like CRM on crack. Like, you connect it one-one with your app, and you have all your information inside Salesforce. And I found those credentials, and I know one guy at that security team, and they're pretty okay with being offensive. Like, every time I post something, he says, but can you go further? Can you go even more? So I felt pretty sure that I was able to try these credentials, and I did. And suddenly I get into their Salesforce. And when I started looking around, I realized I'm an administrator of this. This is a huge company, and this is not data that anybody should be able to access. But everything was available on GitHub. And so I write an email, 2:35 in a Friday night. This is how I spend my Friday nights. I sound so boring, right? Always. No, so I write an email, like, long time no see, you should probably urgently read this. Like 2 minutes later, he answered me, what number can I reach you at? And I give him the number, he calls me up, and he, like, what's up? And I'm like, yeah, so I found these credentials on GitHub, okay? Yeah, it's to Salesforce. Okay. Yeah, the username is called consolebot. And I get in and it works. Like, silent. And then, fuck! Shit! Oof! Shit! Oh, oof! Okay, send me the report, I'll get back to you. Click. And I was like, holy shit! What happened? Like, 2:35 in the morning, like, I did some print screens, tell him about it, told him that it has been online publicly for 9 days on GitHub. And I send everything over to him. And it takes a few days, and after a while, I get a text. Money is coming your way from him. And I didn't understand anything. I went into my email, and I have an email saying, I get $30,000. Because that was the worst thing that could happen to them. That was, like, they have ranked the worst thing that they could do, that could happen, and this was one of the #1 things. So this was the highest paid bounty on HackerOne, because of the impact that this had. All the information open for everybody. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Frans. Are there any questions? Do I see someone in the audience who would like to ask Frans a question? Anybody?
There's one. There. Yeah.
Hey, so nice talk, first of all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So obviously a very good thing for you to happen is getting an email with a $30,000 bounty, and you're like, yep. Can do that again.
Yeah.
What's the worst response to something you've ever gotten from a company?
Worst, I mean, one time I got an email saying, all right, so you need to sign this NDA, not to tell anybody about this, but if you do, we're going to pay you $5,000. So that was like threatening in a way that I was totally fine with. But I tend to keep doing this to companies that allows me to do it. So I stay out. That was why the best thing for us was to publicly go online with the issue that Patreon had, instead of going to all these companies, because that would be really scary. Because you don't want to knock on somebody's door and say that they have a security issue if they don't gonna treat you well. So I try to keep out from that, and that's why I'm also recommending companies to allow somebody to actually have one channel in that doesn't go to the legal office. It goes to the security team or the developing team. So I try to keep out from doing having that feeling that something bad could happen. So I think that's the worst, luckily.
Anybody else? I have to run.
Hi, Maarten Sikkema from McCall. I wonder, did you ever work for or hack any banks? I wonder what's your opinion on the security of financial institutions. It's my personal idea that I'm waiting for the first bank to go broke because they got hacked and $1 billion got
So there's
stolen.
a cool thing in the Netherlands. I don't know if, I think I've heard that there's a law or something that says that all the banks in Netherlands need to have a responsible disclosure policy. Because all the banks they have that. And a lot of the Netherlands banks also pay money. They pay bounties for finding issues. So there's been a lot of DDoS, which I don't believe is really it's not hacking, because most certainly there's somebody buys a DDoS or denial of service service for it. But in terms of banks, I would say the Netherlands banks are in the forefront of. We have one Swedish bank that allows you to hack them, Swedbank. Props go out. So, no, but Netherlands is absolutely best of doing that today.
Frans, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.